Show me the money? We'll all have to wait until November 4th. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Deeper than the headlines.
The answers you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Budget talk. That's the talk of the town. Budget Day is a big day in the nation's capital, and that big day is coming a little later this year, not until November 4th, according to Canada's newest Minister of Finance, François-Philippe Champagne.
Mr. Speaker, it's a great question indeed. We're going to present a great budget in this House on the 4th of November, Mr. Speaker. This is going to be a generational investment in our future. We're going to build this country, Mr. Speaker. We're going to protect our communities. We're going to empower Canadians. We're going to build the strongest economy in the G7. We're going to build this country like never before. We're going to build the Canada of the 21st century. Mr. Speaker, we are the true north, strong and free.
It's been more than a year already since the government presented a full budget. The last one delivered April 16th of last year. So by the time November 4th rolls around, it will have been 567 days, or about a year and a half, since the government presented a budget. The last budget forecasted a deficit of $40 billion, but by the time the fall economic statement was sort of delivered last fall, that budget deficit had topped more than $60 billion. And Prime Minister Carney has said this year's deficit will be even more than that. But the government's selling point is already being made clear. It intends to make, and get used to hearing this, generational investments. Here again is the Minister of Finance.
This budget is going to be a generational investment in Canada. There's a lot of parallel that I can make between 1945 and 2025, at a time where our largest trading partner, neighbor, is turning its back on Canada. We had to make significant investments to protect our workers, protect our industry, and now it's going to be that collective effort we need to make sure that Canada is going to be resilient in this new world economic order. We're in the middle of global trade war. We need to make sure that we make smart investment, and the way to do that is that we say we're going to be rigorous in our expenses so we can be ambitious in our investments. So you want to spend less so you have more capital to invest. And the type of things, that you've seen, we talk about major nation-building project. We're talking about infrastructure. We're talking about housing. The type of thing that will give a return on our investment to make sure that we are resilient as a nation.
So what does that mean for any cuts? Will programs be cut? Will government workers lose their jobs? Tough choices will have to be made, according to the finance minister.
Canadians have been tightening their belt for quite some time. It's only normal that the federal government does the same. We've been expanding government for the good part of the last decade, and families, I know, have been tightening their belt. Workers have been tightening their belt. So what we're saying is that what we're asking from Canadians needs to be reflected also at the Government of Canada. This is being more efficient, using technology, reviewing processes, making sure that, I would say, we offer services of the 21st century with technology of the 21st century. Many of our systems date back to the 20th century. So it's about, making sure that we better serve Canadians and use all the tools available to do that. And at the same time, be very rigorous in our expenses.
One person who doesn't think the government has been rigorous with its expenses is the interim parliamentary budget officer. Jason Jock is the budget watchdog. He answers to Parliament, not to the government of the day, and appeared before the Government Operations and Estimates Committee. He sounds concerned about a lack of fiscal anchors from the Liberals and fiscal targets that are all up in the air.
I don't know that the government currently has fiscal anchors, which of course causes the people that I work with a considerable degree of concern at this point. As everyone knows, the government did have fiscal anchors. The previous Minister of Finance had the fiscal anchor of a ceiling of the annual deficit at 1% of GDP, along with a declining debt to GDP ratio. It's unclear where those stand. They haven't been reiterated by the current government, to the best of my knowledge. With respect to your point regarding the capital and the operating side, we haven't seen a clear definition of what would fall into capital and what would fall into operating. So at this point, it's impossible for us and for you as parliamentarians to assess the likelihood or probability of the government hitting any fiscal target.
Will the Conservatives support this budget? Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was asked that question yesterday, and it sounds like we'll have to check back in with him on November 4th.
When it comes to the budget, where are you going to land on that? Are you going to support it?
Which budget?
The one November 4th that was announced today.
Do you have a copy you can give me?
I don't,
Okay,
but
when you get one, then I'll answer your question.
are there anything that Poilievre in there that would make it so that you wouldn't support it? I mean, tell me what your feelings are.
I'm saying that Mark Carney needs to keep his promise and reverse the massive spending increases that he has brought in that have caused the deficit to double without even introducing the budget.
Poilievre will go on to say this budget will be presented with most of the fiscal year already over.
The federal government has no idea what it's doing. When it introduces a budget, 2/3 after the fiscal year is already done. Like 8 months of the 12-month fiscal year will be behind us. And in that time, Mr. Carney will have doubled the deficit, ballooned the bureaucracy, and increased the inflation rate, all the opposite of what he promised. Another Liberal bait and switch.
Today's session in the House of Commons gets going in less than 2 hours from now. There will be a question period shortly thereafter. It's expected both Prime Minister Mark Carney and the opposition leader Pierre Poilievre will lead off the debate today in the House of Commons. Mark Carney was not in the House yesterday. He was having a meeting with the Premier of Saskatchewan, Scott Moe. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
On News Radio.
Decision day for the Bank of Canada. It has been looking over reports that show a weakening Canadian economy, but also an inflation rate that tracked higher last month. So the big question was, what would the Bank of Canada do? Would it lower interest rates? And the answer is yes. A 25 basis point cut to the downside, putting the overnight rate at 2.5%. Doug Porter is chief economist at BMO Financial Group. Thanks for joining us again.
My pleasure, Rob.
Why did the Bank of Canada cut interest rates today?
Well, actually, they laid out their reasoning fairly clearly. They gave three major arguments. First and foremost was the fact that the job market in particular has weakened a lot in the last couple months. You know, they went into their last decision having seen a really strong report for the month of June, and since that time we've had two really weak reports where, according to StatCan, we've lost 100,000 jobs in the space of 2 months, and the unemployment rate went up by 0.2. But the other two things they pointed to was more on the inflation front. They noted that the last couple inflation reports have suggested that underlying trends are softening a little bit. And they also noted that the backing down of retaliatory tariffs on Canada's behalf will also take a bit of steam out of underlying inflation. And keep in mind that that really only went into effect in September, so that hasn't showed up in the official numbers just yet.
How would you describe the environment with inflation right now, Doug Porter?
It's not ideal, but it's important to point out, and I think the Bank of Canada's got a good way of looking at this. Even if you take out gasoline prices, for instance, or if you look at things outside of food and energy, admittingly two very important categories, but underlying inflation is about 2.5% when you look at it that way. Of course, they aim for inflation of 2%. Doesn't sound like a big deal. It's still a little bit strong for their comfort, but not in a place that's going to keep them from cutting rates. So I would say inflation is acting as a little bit of a guardrail in terms of what the Bank of Canada can do in terms of cutting rates, but it's not going to be, it's not a roadblock for them entirely. It will just keep them cautious, but as we saw today, not so cautious that they can't trim rates here and there.
What are the chances that this could be the first of several cuts to interest rates?
Oh, we think it's fairly likely that they will cut more. It's just not clear whether they're going to immediately move again at the next meeting. And I will add that the governor was incredibly careful not to promise anything and not to give any specific guidance in terms of what comes next. But if you just look at the bigger picture and their concern over the recent softness in the job market and the ongoing uncertainty on the trade front, I think there's a pretty good case, a fairly strong case for further rate cuts. We've been saying for a while that we think they're going to move every other meeting here starting today. So the next cut would be in December and then another one in March. So that would take their overnight rate down to about 2% from the peak that we saw, early last year of 5%. That's a pretty substantial move. And we're still relatively comfortable with that call. Nothing we really saw today would change that view at this point.
So employment is on the rise. The last GDP report, which was for the second quarter, we're well into the third quarter now, but the second quarter report was a contraction. I believe it was 1.4% on an annual basis. Is this an economy, the Canadian economy, is it already in a recession? What would you say?
I wouldn't say that. Of course, keep in mind there were some special factors involved here around the trade uncertainty. Basically consumers knew that there was a good chance that tariffs were coming, especially in the U.S., but to some extent in Canada, and they got ahead of that in the first quarter. So what we saw was quite a bit of, product going back and forth across the border in the first quarter of the year before the tariffs began. And it sort of bolstered or exaggerated activity in the opening months of the year. And then, of course, we got the correction in the second quarter. Companies in the U.S. had imported all the Canadian autos or steel and aluminum that they needed for a while. And so they basically stopped importing in the second quarter. So we saw our exports drop at quite a heavy rate in the second quarter. So that exaggerated the weakness. Not to say that things weren't really hard hit in the specific sectors that have been tariffed, but I don't think it really qualifies as a recession. And since that point, we actually have seen, the early returns on July and August suggest that the economy did nudge back into positive territory in the next couple of months. And I think what we're going to see is meat growth, but still some growth over the next year. So it doesn't quite qualify as a recession.
How concerned are you that rate cuts could reignite inflation?
I am somewhat concerned. I am concerned. There's always the possibility that the housing market could catch fire, at least in some cities again. We've seen this movie before a number of times over the years where, the Bank of Canada aggressively cuts interest rates and then housing flares higher and then we have a bit of an inflation problem. It is a risk. I think that's one of the reasons why the bank will step gingerly here. They'll move quite cautiously. And I do not see them doing a repeat of what we saw during COVID or before COVID, where they cut rates to basically zero. I don't think we're going to go back to that world unless we're faced with some true emergency. And, barring that, I'm not especially concerned that the housing market is really going to overdo it as they trim these interest rates here.
So the overnight rate is 2.5%. Where do you think it'll be by the end of the year?
Well, so our official call is 2.25, and then another small trim early next year, which would take it down to 2. That's actually a little bit lower than what's the financial market has got priced in. The financial market is pretty sure, as a whole, that the bank will cut rates one more time, but they're not so sure about that second cut. That's still a matter of debate out there in the markets.
Okay, good to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Doug Porter, Chief Economist at BMO Financial Group, on the rate cut from the Bank of Canada today, 25 basis points down to 2.5%. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now you know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
And if you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, now you know with Rob Snow, there's a great new mobile app. It will help you hear our show when you want to. You can listen live. You can listen to the podcast. It's called the Seeker app. That's Seeker, spelled Seekr, and it has all kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, and sports, and you can download Seeker for iOS or Android. That's Seeker, spelled Seekr. And now you know with Rob Snow is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Well, there's an old saying in the wide world of sports, it's not how, it's how many. And the Jays, how many was 6 last night, and that was one better than the Tampa Bay Rays. Final score in Florida last night, 6-5. But it was I watched it. It was a weird ball game. In the third inning, with the Jays leading 4-0, Brandon Lowe for the Rays hit a 3-run home run. Now, it looked like Nathan Lucas of the Jays may have been able to catch the ball, which was barely headed over the fence, but a fan caught the ball, and it looked as though there could have been fan interference. The umpires took a look at it and said, yeah, there was fan interference, but it would have been a home run anyway. So they let the call stand, and the game was 4-3. Later in the game, Lucas also appeared to hit a home run. It bounced off the top of the fence. It was first ruled a double, but then the umpire said that was also a home run. And in the end, the Jays needed that run because the Rays scored runs in both the bottom of the eighth and the bottom of the ninth. But back-to-back strikeouts by closer Jeff Hoffman sealed the win for the Jays, and that is their 6th win in a row. So hot at just the right time. The Jays lead over the New York Yankees in the American League East remains at 5 full games. Yankees edged the Twins 10-9 last night. The Jays lead over the Red Sox is now 7 games. Boston fell to the Athletics 2-1 last night. Jays also got some news about Bo Bichette yesterday. He will be out for the rest of the regular season with that knee injury, but the club hopes he'll be back in time for the playoffs. The Jays, I believe, have 11 games remaining in their regular season, including another game against the Rays in Florida tonight. Game time 7 p.m. Kevin Gausman expected to be on the mound for the Jays, and you can catch all the action on Sportsnet. You can also listen on the radio at 95.7 News Radio in Halifax, 570 News Radio in Kitchener, and Sportsnet 960, The Fan, in Calgary. If you need gas, okay, you're getting close to the E, try to wait until tomorrow if you can. Gas price experts expecting a big drop in gas prices tomorrow, maybe by as much as 10 cents a liter. Why? Because of the switch to winter gas. And winter gas is cheaper to make, so it's cheaper to buy. And gas stations usually make the change to winter gas on the 15th of September, but it takes a few days to sell out the rest of the summer gas. So tomorrow, look for a big drop in gas prices. The switch back to summer gas happens on or about April 15th. So if you're running on fumes, gosh, don't fill up today. You could save a little bit of money, we're told, if you hold off until tomorrow. Gas prices have been creeping, a little bit higher in recent weeks, close to $1.50 in Halifax. In this part of the country, we're at about $1.45. $1.41, $1.42 in the Kitchener area, about $1.31.9 in Calgary. $1.75.9. Highest gas prices in the country, of course, in Vancouver. They'll fall to about $1.65 tomorrow. What a screaming deal. Big drop in gas prices tomorrow. Newsday panel right after the news on News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
It's time for our Wednesday Newsday panel. Housing and homelessness, our focus for the day. This week, Prime Minister Mark Carney announced his Build Canada Homes program. Joining us to talk about that program and other issues are Tim Richter, the president and CEO of the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. Tim Richter, good to hear from you.
Hey, great to be here.
And Tim Ross, the executive director of the Co-operative Housing Federation. Tim Ross, good to hear from you.
Thanks for the invitation to be here.
All right. Tim and Tim, I hope it doesn't get too confusing for me. So let's get into it here.
We'll do our best.
Well, it's about me, not you guys. Don't worry. Build Canada Homes aims to build 4,000 homes. The program cost is $13 billion. Tim Richter, what do you think of the plan?
Well, I think it's. I'm on one hand, I think I'm
pretty excited about the opportunity. I think the important focus on deeply affordable and supportive housing and community housing like co-ops that Tim Ross can talk about. I think that's really smart because these are people that aren't able to really find housing in the market today and are really challenged by our current environment. But again, a lot will depend on how it's implemented, and we have to wait and see how Build Canada Homes comes together.
Tim Ross, what do you think of the program based on what you know about it?
Well, I think we have a really big opportunity here to take a big swing at the housing crisis. I think first off, you cited that the program aims to build 4,000 homes at a cost of $13 billion. My understanding of the opportunity is that they've announced an initial 4,000 units to be built on surplus federal land, but I would expect much more than 4,000 units to come from this program. One of the big things that I like about this program is it's going to make federal lands available for the development of affordable housing at scale and housing that's defined as affordable, attached to people's incomes versus being connected to the market. That's a big opportunity, but there's a lot of details yet to come, and so we have to wait and see.
Okay, we keep hearing this term, deeply affordable housing. How could it help build more deeply affordable housing, Tim Ross?
Well, one of the ways I think is to take the cost of land out of the equation by contributing surplus federal land at very low or no cost on long-term leases for affordable housing developers to build housing on. That in and of itself really helps ensure the starting cost to the household that'll eventually rent this housing. It'll really make sure that those savings are passed on to households. The other way to get to that deeper affordability is through the legal structure of the housing that gets built. By focusing on nonprofit and co-op housing, they have a mission to provide housing at cost on a not-for-profit basis. So the cost of housing does not go up as fast as the costs that you would experience on the market. So that's another way to get to a deeper level of affordability from what I understand the Build Canada Homes program will offer.
Okay. What do you think? How will it help Tim Richter build more deeply affordable housing?
Well, I think that, Tim Ross hit the nail on the head. I mean, it really comes down to the cost structure and the subsidy that's attached to that housing. So one of the first pieces of good news coming out of Build Canada Homes was a focus on supportive housing, which is really critical if we're gonna try and tackle our homelessness crisis in Canada. But I think if we're thinking about Build Canada Homes, I think it's really important that we don't look at it like some kind of silver bullet. Like the Build Canada Homes by itself won't solve the housing crisis, and the federal government has a lot of other tools at its disposal that it'll need to bring to bear to tackle the housing crisis. And really importantly, to get deeply affordable housing, the federal government can't do it alone. It's really important. It is going to be really important for the federal government to engage the provinces and have some kind of a Team Canada approach to the housing crisis. Build Canada Homes is really important, but by itself won't solve the crisis, and you'll need the provinces and cities engaged.
I see. Okay. Why don't we stop here? I have many more questions about the government's plan on the financing side, who is going to build these homes, and we have to talk about what we're hearing about homeless encampments in various municipalities across the country, with some municipalities taking a harder stance on where homeless encampments can be located. That and much more just ahead on our Newsday panel. We've We're focusing on housing and homelessness issues today with a pair of experts. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
It's our Wednesday news panel. We're talking about housing and homelessness today with Tim Richter, the president and CEO of the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness, and Tim Ross, the executive director of the Co-operative Housing Federation. So, Tim Ross, let's talk about what this Build Canada Homes plan says. It says it will, quote, offer stable, long-term, low-cost financing to private and non-profit housing providers. What does that mean, and how could it help?
So one thing that's really missing in the marketplace right now is access to affordable long-term financing to develop affordable housing. So that the Build Canada Homes program will offer that is an important way to get affordable rental and nonprofit housing built. And it really just helps make the development pro formas work and ensures a more affordable starting cost for the end user. A lot of people know that you can rent or you can buy in Canada, and this will also help develop co-op housing. Co-op housing members enjoy greater affordability relative to market renters and stronger security of tenure. In fact, we did a study a couple years ago that showed, on average, compared to renters, co-op members are saving $400 to $500 per month on their rent when compared to similarly aged market rental buildings. What would you do with an extra $400 or $500 a month? That's the type of thing that we hope to realize through the development opportunities in this and other programs.
Okay, who's going to build these homes, Tim Ross? The government, not-for-profits, the private sector, all three? What's your understanding?
Well, ultimately, my understanding and my expectation would be is that the private sector builds 100% of the housing developed through Build Canada Homes and in other programs. But what's really important is what's the ultimate ownership framework look like for what gets built. And so it's good to see that there's a significant focus on building deeply affordable non-market, non-profit and co-op housing, because this type of housing is all too rare in Canada. We're behind OECD comparators in terms of the availability of this deeply affordable housing, and this is a big reason for why we're in a housing crisis. So ultimately, the private sector needs to build all this housing, and it's important that the private sector has opportunities to continue building right now, because we're seeing an economic downturn in many condominium and markets. So this offers a counter-cyclical opportunity to keep developers moving on projects and to keep workforce attached to their employers. This could really help prevent an economic downturn, which is something we really don't need right now.
Okay. Well, I want to turn our attention to people who don't have homes and the situation with homeless encampments across the country. Tim Richter, we have a number of municipalities taking a harder line on homeless encampments. Barrie has declared a state of emergency because of safety concerns. Cities like Winnipeg, St. John, New Brunswick are passing new bylaws about where encampments can be located, not near schools, daycare centers, recreational facilities, and the like. What do you think of these decisions being made by these local governments?
Well, I think the local governments are responding to responding with a bit of frustration. I mean, if you look at unsheltered homelessness in Canada, according to the federal government's own statistics, since 2018, unsheltered homelessness in Canada has gone up over 300%. That's a massive increase. And, I think we need to understand where it's coming from and why it's happening. Homelessness is a housing problem. These people are in encampments because they've been forced out of the housing system by the high cost of that housing and the cost of inflation. Even today's inflation report was talking about continued increases in food prices. So, moving encampments around doesn't solve doesn't solve the problem, right? The people that are living in unsheltered
Just moves
homelessness,
the problem, doesn't it? Just moves
does
the
move
problem.
it, yeah. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
imagine squeezing one end of a water balloon, right? Like you're just spreading it around the community. Ultimately, if you want to resolve this problem, you want to deal with some of the, the concerns that the community has. You need to move people into housing. Coming out of the Build Canada housing announcement, one of the things that I think is in there that really hasn't been noticed is when they talked about supportive and transitional housing, that one of the opportunities we've been pushing the federal government to pursue is to put in place emergency housing and move people out of unsheltered homelessness into the same kind of housing that we would use if a natural disaster came. So if there was a natural disaster, a flood or a fire in Ottawa, for example, and lots of people were forced out of their homes, we would put them up somewhere in hotels. And if they were out of their homes for an extended period of time, temporary housing, like we use here in Alberta, and workforce housing would be put up, and that's called bridge housing. And that is one thing that I think Build Canada Homes could do quickly to alleviate the pressure on some of these communities, help people get inside until we sort out long-term housing for them.
Very interesting. Okay, we'll be right back. With more on housing and homelessness issues today, I'm Rob Snow. It's our Wednesday Newsday panel. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Tim Richter is with us, President and CEO of the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. Tim Ross, I'm not sure if Tim Ross is still with us. I think he may have had to leave early. Executive Director. He's still here? Okay.
Still with you, yes.
All right, good. Executive Director, Co-operative Housing Federation. I've been reading with interest research that's been done by Abacus Data on what it's calling precarity. Precarity is on the rise. People feel as though their financial situation is more precarious. And this surely includes their housing situation. What is known about, say, the number of people who are maybe a paycheck or two away from losing their housing? Tim Ross, any ideas?
Well, this theme of precarity has been running through the research by Abacus, and we actually worked with Abacus on a poll recently on Canadian attitudes around housing and homelessness, and it picked up there. But one thing's for sure, Canadians agree that the federal government needs to prioritize investment in nonprofit and co-op housing. People feel this sense of precarity because they don't have any control over all the expenses that are going up around them. If you're a renter, you have absolutely no control over your rent, your rental expenses. If you compare that to living in a cooperative whose mission is to deliver housing as affordably as possible, you start to get a little bit more of that sense of control. You mentioned St. John and encampments, and this is a phenomenon across Canada. One of the ways to also help ease the flow of people into encampments is to protect the affordable rental housing that we already have. And there's a community of about 180 rental units in St. John that was just recently acquired by a cooperative to protect the affordability of their rents for the long term and invest in some energy retrofits to lower the energy bills. So there are ways that communities can work together to build in a stronger sense of control, but we still have a long way to go.
Okay. Tim Richter, what do you know about the number of Canadians who are maybe this close to losing their home and being on the street, maybe a paycheck or two away from being homeless? What's known about that?
Well, we know that we've seen some recent research that tells us a couple of things. One is that the number of people in Canada that have experienced homelessness at some point in their lives, this is from Stats Canada, is equivalent to the population of Alberta. So that's just about 4 million people at some point in their lives in Canada have experienced homelessness. We know from other research that somewhere around 35% of Canadians have either experienced homelessness themselves. About 30% say they know somebody who has. So this is an issue that is touching a lot of households in Canada. And The research that Tim pointed to, that we also saw in that research that just about 60% of Canadians worry that if something changes, some of their financial situation changes, they're worried about losing their housing. And, I mentioned earlier the inflation numbers that came out yesterday or today.
Yesterday.
Prices are continuing to go up. If you are in, the first 3 income quintiles in Canada, especially if you are low income and you're renting, about 80% of your budget, 80% of your household budget is food or housing. And, just before the pandemic, rent has increased somewhere around 20%, and food has increased over 30%. Low-income households just don't have the ability. They don't have any extra income to make up that difference. And so they end up just getting forced out of their home because the cost of everything else has gone up.
Okay. I really appreciate both of you setting aside some of your day today. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah,
thank
you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, Tim Richter is the president and CEO of the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. Tim Ross is the executive director of the Co-operative Housing Federation. I'm Rob Snow. Talkback right after the news. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Today's topic is the cost of living. The cost of living, inflation rate yesterday. Bank of Canada cut interest rates today because of a slowing economy. Here's a question for you. What do you think could be done to reduce the cost of living for Canadians? We are looking for solutions today. We are looking for ideas, any and all ideas. Higher wages, rent controls, price caps at the grocery store, price controls, if you want to throw that in the mix. We're open to hearing from you if you have an idea on what could be done to reduce the cost of living for Canadians. And we want to hear as many ideas today as we can possibly fit in. 1-833-668-2577. Surely to goodness somebody has an idea. 1-833-668-2577. It's the top concern for so many Canadians, the cost of living. So many Canadians are really, really having a hard time making ends meet. So what can be done to lower housing prices or make houses more affordable? What can be done so that rents are lower or prices at the grocery store are lower, or gas prices or utility bills or insurance or taxes? Because it's tough out there. I mean, it's tough out there. How tough is it? I mean, just read the news. Just read the news on any given day. The inflation report came out yesterday. Food prices up again, up another 3.4%. Meat is becoming a luxury item. Beef prices up more than 12%, almost 13%. Food bank use continues to rise, up 40% in just the last 2 years. The largest food bank in Toronto says it expects 4 million visits this year, double the number of just 2 years ago. Some municipalities are saying it's so bad, they've declared food insecurity emergencies. Places like Aurelia, Kingston, Brockville. On the housing front, it's really not getting any better, especially for renters. The inflation report said rents were up another 4.5% in August. Homeowners aren't being spared either. Mortgage interest costs climbed another 4%. We have a housing agency, CMHC. It says the country needs to build 500,000 housing units a year, every year, for the foreseeable future in order to bring housing costs down. And yet housing starts, the number of new homes being built, that's down and down dramatically. In Toronto, that city is on pace for its lowest year for housing construction in 30 years. More and more Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck. A recent survey by Harris and Partners said almost 90%, 89% of Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck. 77% said if they had to come up with an extra $500 to cover an emergency expense, they wouldn't be able to do it. They don't have $500. 80% said they have no savings at all. According to H&R Block, 85% of Canadians now view living paycheck to paycheck as normal. And more than half would have to go into debt if they faced an emergency expense. Another survey said Canadians wouldn't be able to pay their bills if their paycheck was delayed or missed. About a quarter of Canadians are just 3 weeks away from being broke. 3 weeks. 3 weeks. More Canadians are going even deeper into debt just to pay for basics like food costs and heating bills. A little more than 60% have used a credit card to pay for groceries or cover the heating bill. And it's taking a toll on people's mental health. 8 out of 10 Canadians say, I'm financially stressed out. I'm stressed out, tapped out, worried about my financial circumstances. Money management firm Coho says young people are really struggling. Gen Z, almost a third say their financial situation is in free fall. Having to get by on about $1,000 a month, 20% of them are unemployed. The vast majority say splurges are out. They only spend money on the basics because it's all they can afford. It's all kind of bleak. Precarity. We mentioned that with our housing experts today. David Coletto from Abacus Data keeps talking about precarity. Precarity is on the rise. People feel as though their life is precarious. Their employment situation is precarious. Their housing situation is precarious. Their financial situation is precarious. In other words, they're on edge. They're worried about going over the edge. They feel as though life is not stable. Employment is not stable. Housing is not stable. Financial situation unstable. At the heart of it all is a cost of living crisis, an affordability crisis. People need relief. And people need solutions. They're looking for answers and ideas. Do you have any? If you do, we'd love to hear them. We would love to hear them today. What can be done about the cost of living? What can be done to reduce costs for Canadians? Housing prices, monthly rents, prices at the grocery store, and all of those other bills that people say they're struggling to cover in the run of a month. No idea is too out there. We're open to hearing any and all ideas that you may have today. Our call-in line, 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called before, just mention that. We'll make your call a priority. What solutions do you think there might be to the high cost of living? What ideas do you have? Let's hear them. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Canadians are struggling with the high cost of living. That's clear. What ideas do you have? Solutions that could lower costs for Canadians. 1-833-668-2577. And off we go to Calgary first. Tony. Hello, Tony.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
Very good, Tony.
First time caller.
Good to hear from you. Well, I appreciate that, Tony. Thank you so much. Give me an idea, Tony. What can you do? What can you do to lower those bills for people?
No, man. From what I'm seeing is, personally, the income tax that they're taking off our checks is just way too high. I mean, you could take some, but the amount that they're taking off, I think that would, I was talking about it, me and my wife the other day, but I think that would really help. They lowered that and gave us some of that back, or lowered the taxes so we have more money in our pockets to be able to afford.
Cut taxes.
Yeah, cut taxes. I don't
Cut
see
taxes.
anything happening with the taxes. I mean, like teachers are going on strike. Like you're saying, schools are overcrowded, and they're taking a lot of tax from people's pockets. So
Okay. The government did announce a tax cut. I mean, has that made any kind of, have you noticed that?
I'll be honest with you. This last month, they've taken around $5,800 from me just in taxes. So if I had that $5,800 in my pocket, I'd be able to afford a lot more, or even half of that. $2,500 would get me a lot further than what we are now, right?
Okay. Yeah. Because it was a reduction in the lowest marginal tax rate, 15 to 14%. It came into effect on Canada Day of this year. And it applies to people up to $57,000 a year. So it says 22 million Canadians would save money from that. 22 million Canadians would save up to, it's always the fine print there, up to $420 a person, $840 for a couple.
For a couple, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that. Maybe I make a little bit more than that, but maybe that probably explains why I'm paying more tax.
Maybe.
So.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. I mean, $420, it's better in your pocket, say, than the government's. That would be my opinion. But when it works out, it's probably the cost of a cup of coffee a day, right?
That's right.
$420, right? So, yeah. But your thing is, you're looking at your pay stub and you're seeing deduction, and it's all adding up, and you think the government is kind of taking too much, and you could use a deep tax cut.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I figured that would come up. Cut taxes. All right. Thank you, Tony. You've got us off to a good start there, sir. Thank you for being a first-time caller. Darnell, staying in Calgary. Darnell, up next. Hello, Darnell.
Hello. Appreciate your show.
Hi, Darnell. Save me some money, Darnell. Lower my costs for me. What ideas do you have?
Well, I think a lot of us have the same idea. I think we need to put Canadians first, and our taxes are our biggest expense. And I don't know, a lot of business owners like myself, I think we're borrowing money to pay our taxes rather than getting ahead. And we just need a government that is as fiscally responsible as they expect us to be, because if we have a shortfall, it's like, okay, borrow to pay us back. But when they have shortfalls, they just spend more, and they're not fiscally responsible, and they need to be treating it like the business that they are when it comes to our finances. They're just blowing money. There doesn't seem to be any accountability or sensibility to it. And just put Canadians first.
So you would like lower government spending? I'm just writing these down to see if there's any trend that emerges. Well, lower government
and not even
spending.
just lower government spending, but fiscally responsible. Spend it on the right things. Spend it on Canadians.
Okay.
Check, look after the people at home first, because we're struggling here, and there's going to come a point where, again, it's a situation when people don't have it to give. Then what's going to happen? Because I think we're getting to that breaking point where it's not even feasible for some people to even stay in business anymore because of the high taxes that we're in. And
do you mind if I ask, what line of business are you in? What kind of business do you do?
I've been in real estate since 1998.
In real estate. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And how's that business these days?
Well, it's difficult even in a strong market like Calgary. People are struggling. And again, affordability. Calgary is quite affordable compared to other parts of the country, but it's the high taxes that are affecting, I see it in my business, and I see it at the grocery store. I see seniors putting food back, and that just breaks my heart. Those are the people that have been there for us. And it's like there's no fiscal responsibility to the people that have built this country anymore.
That is, you mentioned that. And I've talked to a few people about that, and I've seen that myself, how depressing that is. When you go to the grocery store now and you go down the meat section, you will see people who will pick items up, look at the price, and they will put them back.
I saw this one lady, she probably had never stolen anything in her life. She was so embarrassed when they caught her, but she buried a bunch of meat underneath some bags in her cart. And she was an elderly
really?
woman who, and you could just tell that it wasn't something that she was comfortable doing, but she was hungry. They're hungry.
Isn't that something? Yeah, it's very depressing. Okay.
It's heartbreaking, and, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Rob.
Lower government spending and more responsible government spending. Spend it on Canadians first, says Darnell. And off we go for the midweek talkback. Cost savings. We're looking for cost savings today. What can you do to lower the cost of living for Canadians? Solutions, people. We want solutions. On Talkback today. News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
With so many Canadians struggling with the high cost of living, what ideas or solutions do you have that would lower costs for Canadians? To Kitchener for the first time today, Greg is up next. Hello, Greg.
Hi, Rob. Second-time caller here, actually. So
I appreciate that. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah. Just a couple sort of either questions or just a bit of confusion first. Like KW, Kitchener-Waterloo, it keeps growing. Like it's not a small town anymore. I've been there all my life.
Oh,
but
no.
These aren't these are fancy things going up. So I hear all your staggering stats at the beginning is how many people in general are living paycheck to paycheck. Well, who's buying all this new stuff like this constantly? Okay, there's another field. That's subdivision. So it just seems like I'm only seeing the ones that somehow got money, and it's not me because I got knocked down to renting from owning due to financial reasons. So that just kind of, it just seems like what I see out there physically goes against the numbers that I keep hearing that is the reality. So that's just more of a comment or a confusion thing. And then, and then another thing too, like the last person saying about Canadian government maybe spending more fiscally responsible. It's what always gets me is, okay, there's all these problems, no answers. And then say something like tragic happens, like a flood or a hurricane, some other country. Well, they got X million just sitting there to help out. Then it's like, okay, I'm not saying don't do that, but maybe whatever money must be sitting there, if they could just drop it at, for a spur of the moment for a emergency issued. How about maybe revamp the numbers and put some towards subsidizing, like on the necessities in Canada?
Okay.
Like they can't have no money there when just everything's come up and instantly there's tons. So I don't know how where that came from or whatever.
Well, maybe one thing you could do is maybe you could revisit what should sales tax apply to in Canada, for example, or the GST or whatever the case might be, something like that. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. There's no GST already on groceries, for example. But.
Right. Okay. So yeah, sure. That's more. I'm just saying maybe there's some money out there in reserve for whatever. Maybe some of that whatever could be maybe let's look a bit more closer to the needs of today. So and then now as for a solution, this one I'll admit could be totally whacked out. Could be loopholes. Might not be feasible.
I'm open to hearing anything today. Yeah.
Okay, because you know how you get taxed in income brackets. Depending on what you make.
Yes.
Different things. I don't know.
The more you make, the more you pay.
Right. So what about if they could somehow? What if they could somehow do that for product pricing, such as you make $200,000 a year, bread costs you $3. You have $50,000 a year. Okay, so in other words, graded pricing on necessity products. Like there's graded pricing in sports tickets, depending on the better the seat. The more you have, who's playing. Like when the Leafs go to Buffalo, you pay more than when Columbus Blue Jackets go there. So there's discretion in grading there. And I just thought, just like they tax people at different, brackets. What about if somehow, again, it could be far out and way too much to implement, but say, okay, I'm on welfare. Okay, bread, I can get that for $1. I'm a millionaire. I'm going to pay $3 for that, and just have different steps in between. So for what it's worth, it's an idea.
It's an idea. I'll throw it out there to the listeners. Maybe the listeners have something to say about that. Progressive pricing for basics. Okay, as you say. Sure. It's an idea. All right. Progressive pricing. All right. Okay. All right. Yeah. Sure. I think bread is about $3.50 a loaf these days. 1-833-668-2577. News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
With so many Canadians struggling with the high cost of living, what ideas do you have that would lower costs? Abe in Champion, Alberta. Hi, Abe.
Hi there. How are you? Hi, how
Very
are
good,
you?
Abe. Very good, Abe. What are your ideas?
I just want to make a comment about your guest you had on and the idea of Carney saying he's going to take government federal land and turn it into housing lots. Let's just an example. Now, you can check this out with land developers, but let's say you have a lot that's $400,000 selling. 5% of that goes to the raw land developer. That's all they make. 10% of that on each lot is for the land. All the rest of it, a tiny bit there, is for the builder. They want to, if they can make a buck on the land, on the lot. All the rest of it goes to services. This high cost of services on government land is who in the hell is going to pay for that?
Okay.
People can't afford lots now. People that can't afford houses now, we're going to have to subsidize that. And that, to me, if you're subsidizing people, I like helping people help themselves. I don't like welfare just to help people. But if I can see you have homeless people and you got other people that have to have a home. But there's better solutions than co-op housing. And people, there are a lot of smarter people than you or me around that can tell you what it is. Now, I know you can build high-rises with apartments, make them nice, make them cheap, and that's a better use of the land itself, and put it all into the building and rent it to people that need it. But so I'm going to turn this all around to everybody I was talking so far. The two main ideas I got out of it is lower the damn taxes, and the second one, quit spending money stupidly. The second one is quit spending our money stupidly. And I think the provinces and the federal government have always been guilty of that. They give money away. We've got a person here that in a small town here, now I know of them, and I just saw their minutes. They're doing research. They just got another $20 million check from our provincial government, Alberta. They're trying to turn what I call water into wine. They're trying to turn diesel, railway tie, into diesel fuel. Now, are you nuts? You know how much natural gas and oil we have that we can make diesel fuel out of?
Right.
What are we, nuts or something? $20 million to do that research.
Right. Okay.
And this
sure.
I'm not going to tell you who it is, but but it's a fact, eh? I've gone on their books. I'm on their mailing list. I know they are. I've gone and looked at all their, their 3 or 4 different places they have, and they garner money from. They probably get it. I have one in Saskatchewan. They probably get money from the government there too to do this research. But this is the stupid way of spending money. I mean, that's that's a big issue in Ottawa. I mean, the federal government at a time when they were ballooning the size of the government by, I think the number was 43% during the Trudeau era, hiring all of these government employees. At the same time, they were spending record amounts of money on hiring outside consultants. Well, why do we have all of these highly paid at $100,000 and some a year federal public servants? Can't they do the job? Why do you have to spend another $24 billion a year on consulting? No kidding. I agree with you 100%. Right? Yeah. So, that kind of goes to your stop spending money stupidly. Okay. Thank you, Abe. Thank you. Very good. Brian in Calgary as well. Hello, Brian.
Hello.
Hi, Brian. Good to hear from you today.
Yes, I'm calling. I'm a second-time caller, and basically, long story short, it's like, of course, as you know, up here in Alberta, as much as I've been a supporter of the Daniel Smith government and how much they've been, fighting for Alberta and its, getting its resources going and all that other stuff, but in a lot of ways, this government here in Alberta are no saints by any means. Like, for example, when the Alberta government is the only one that's going to claw back the $200 disability benefit the federal government is doling out to people with disabilities, handicaps across Canada, I have a big problem with that. My spouse is considered severely handicapped. That extra $200 would have gone a long ways to help our household. And on top of that, and then of course on top of that now it's like the situation I'm in as far as a working spouse of a disability income recipient is that my net income right now is right around the threshold where the Alberta government will start clawing back her disability payments. And with the cost of living having gone up the way it has, ever since my wife went on disability, which was in 2019, before the pandemic started, and as the inflation exploded like it did, none of the parameters around where the clawbacks start has changed. And for me, it's like, I mean, I am not overly optimistic that the cost of living is going to improve in either the short and long term. To be honest with you, like to me, the damage is done. And for me, it's like I've already told my MLA, and I even sent an email to the minister responsible for social services, which is Jason Nixon, and I basically said to him, it's like you're not giving me any incentive to go out and get extra work, because why should I go and do extra work when all you're going to do is claw back my wife's disability? So basically, it's like our household income, in other words, is basically fixed. There's no incentive for me to do.
You feel you can't get ahead. This is, I wasn't aware of this. I've just done some digging into this, because this was a hard fought win for the Canada Disability Benefit, and it's not like winning the lottery. It's an extra $200 a month. It's $2,400 a year, and if you are on assured income for severely handicapped in Alberta, they're going to claw it back, which completely undermines, the government's intent here to try and put a little bit of money into the pockets of the disabled, for crying out loud, people who can't go to work. Gosh almighty, I'm discouraged to hear that.
And to me, the feds could actually step up and do more. I mean, it's a step in the right direction. And when we're talking about the people who are the most vulnerable, and of course, with my wife's situation right now, I mean, it's hard for her. It was always hard for her to get any kind of work, because one of the terms I'd like to use is a term called silent discrimination, and there's no way that anybody can tell me that people with handicaps and disabilities are not being turned down for jobs because of handicaps. And because basically, but anyhow, but one of the things that really annoys me is how Danielle Smith goes on talking about, it's about time that the feds paid their fair share. I mean, she's missing the point of why the federal government is doing this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. A point well taken, sir. Thank you for raising that. I wasn't aware of that. I was totally unaware of that. I'm not impressed to hear that at all, that is going to be clawed back to Alberta recipients desperately in need of some income stability. 1-833-668-2577. I would like to know more about that for sure. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about the high cost of living today, Canadians struggling to make ends meet. What would you do to lower costs? What ideas do you have to lower people's costs, save people some money? I'm talking about ground level here, savings, housing, rent, grocery store, utility bills, taxes, insurance. I mean, don't get me started about insurance. Gosh almighty, what is going on with insurance? 1-833-668-2577. Airdrie. John is in Airdrie today. Hi, John.
Hey, Rob, how you doing?
Very good, John. Yeah, very good. Save me some money, John. What can you do?
Yeah, I'm going to try. Unfortunately, the population as a whole is pretty greedy. So, I mean, a couple callers back, guys suggested doing multiple stages of payments, of whether you're rich or poor, and doing something like that. That would be ideal, but unfortunately, no one would admit they have money then. But the one idea that they should have is that incentivize the grocery stores, incentivize the gas companies with tax breaks down the road to lower costs right now.
Okay.
Let's save the money now. We'll give you a break down the road. You can afford to carry this for 3 to 5 years. We'll give
Okay.
you all those kinds of incentives. And then the other thing is you got to cut taxes completely, 100% to everybody making under $25,000 a year or $30,000 a year. Just get rid of the taxes altogether. It's not that much money to the government in the long run. Raise the taxes somewhere down the road, like the higher income, raise those taxes a little bit, but you got to cut those taxes completely, 100%.
Okay. Okay. When you say, let's try and incentivize our businesses, let's kind of think here, what kind of incentives could the government give to businesses so that businesses could pass along savings? I'm just wondering, what do you have in mind there?
For every percentage you lower your cost of your goods, let's take a grocery store, for example. You lower the cost of the goods in your store by 10%, we're going to give you 20 cents worth of tax breaks in 2030. Say Loblaws or Sobeys or something like that, right? Not necessarily going to benefit a lot of the smaller stores, but the larger stores that we all shop at, those are going to be the spots. Incentivize Petro-Canada, lower the cost of gas by 15 cents a liter now. We'll give you tax breaks for whatever you're doing, drilling, land, income tax, whatever down the road.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. Okay. Not bad ideas. Hey, thank you so much.
I got that last idea from Kevin Leary when he was talking about the NDP when they first got, when Rachel Notley came into power. He said, instead of penalizing the oil companies, we should get them to, take out their royalties now, and then we'll give them breaks down the road. And I thought that was just a brilliant idea. But Notley came in and raised everything right off the bat, right?
Okay. All right, John, thank you. Ancient history now, I suppose. Can we take a call? I don't think we've taken a call from Nova Scotia yet. Let's take a call from Nova Scotia. Let's get Eric on here. I haven't heard from Eric in a while in Cole Harbour. Hello, Eric.
Hi, Rob. How you doing?
Yeah, very good, Eric. Thank you.
Okay.
What would be your idea?
Well, the first thing I would look at is where's our tax dollars going and how is it being prioritized? Now, this is sort of out of the box thinking. At least it is for me. Look at the billions of dollars that are being spent in healthcare. If we had a government with a political will and if we cleaned up our food supply, half the reasons for our illnesses are because of food. And if we had less health problems, then we'd be spending less dollars on healthcare than we do right now. The second thing is we got to employ people. Now, I'll give you an example. In Halifax here, they're spending $100 million on bike lanes, if you can imagine, to save the planet. Now we got a population of homeless people of around the same size as Mahone Bay in Halifax. I heard an expert say this. I can't give you the exact figures. So he said about 20% of the people that are on the street are actual addicts, and the other are the working poor that can't afford to have accommodations. So why not take $70 million and incorporate training programs, because we need plumbers, we need sheet metal workers, we need electricians, we need bus drivers, we need CCAs, we need LPNs, all that kind of stuff. And then when you fully incorporate people being employed, then there's more people they're making a reasonable living, they have more disposable income, and then it means more revenue for the government. The higher number of people that are paying taxes than the government could, in order to achieve the same objectives, is charge less tax. The last thing I heard this is the last thing. I heard Carney was spending $80 billion on to help out the industrial military complex. And I was listening to Tim Houston yesterday talking. He says Nova Scotia is $1 billion in debt. Imagine if Carney took $1 billion and gave it to Nova Scotia to write off their debts. Wouldn't that lower we're one of the highest tax provinces in Canada, and vice versa for any of the other place. Write off their debts instead of spending $80 billion on a fleet of F-135s, which will be obsolete by the time they build them. See what I mean? It's prioritization. I can't say that word right now.
Making priorities. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Okay, thank you. I have problems with that one too, Eric. I'm glad we could fit you in. Got to run though. Save me some money. Save Canadians some money. Give us some ideas. How do you lower the cost of living for Canadians? 1-833-668-2577. News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Looking for ideas that would lower costs for Canadians. Rob is in Cambridge, Ontario. Hello, Rob.
Hello.
Hi, Rob.
How are you doing today, Rob? You're doing
Very good, sir.
How are you doing? That's
Yeah,
good.
very good, sir. Thank you.
There's
What's your idea?
One generation that they could consider, and it's been talked before, I'm not too sure if it's just Ontario or other provinces, is making a living wage, like a living income, like for people like me as well on CPP disability, and like for seniors on pensions.
Sure.
Like when you think of it, that even if like some of the majority of the seniors getting like maybe $1,600 a year, like not a year, a month, and they're renting, like make it 2,000 or 20. That way you'd be able to buy even stuff that would be generating the work. It's pretty hard to say how can you keep the cost of food down, because you got a lot of issues at play. Like you're buying food across the global. Like even I used to haul the different produce from the U.S. and it cost more in the winter because you ran the southern route.
Oh, of course.
You paid more taxes. And in the northern route, you didn't pay as many taxes. But like what not everybody understands, like with produce on another topic, when you have that produce loaded on your truck, it's not a solid price. And the negotiating comes from between Los Angeles back to Toronto. It's a bidding war.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. That's interesting.
But if they could.
But on this idea, I mean, do you, Rob, support this idea? I had this on my list of ideas. I just toss it out there. Basic income. Everybody in Canada's a wealthy country. Everybody should have a basic income. Pick a number, go with it. 25 grand a year, or whatever you can admit it. There are any number of ways you can do it. But what you would have to do in order for it to make it work, you would need a mass rationalization of what I would call a lot of the empire building that has happened in government around providing programs for low-income Canadians. And I mean at all levels of government.
Yeah, but I can't understand why that provincial can't work with the federal. But you hear it all the time. Like we hear from our Premier Ford all the time, let's all work together. Let's all work together.
Sure.
Well,
sure.
Does it stop from between Toronto to Ottawa?
I'm just wondering if there would be public support. I've done many shows on that before. Basic income guarantee or guaranteed annual income. It has a lot of names, but
would it depend on the region and the country?
Maybe you have different basic incomes in different parts of the country. Maybe it's higher in the GTA and it's lower in rural Newfoundland. I don't know. But when you think about it, I mean, the parliamentary budget officer once did a report on what it would cost to administer a basic income program. I can't remember the figure right now. It was in excess of $70 billion a year. Very expensive program. But we're already spending almost that much anyway on 75 different programs just at the federal level. Then you have all the provincial programs. Then you have all the municipal programs. Is there any way that we could help the poor in a more effective way? Think about that.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
With so many Canadians struggling with the high cost of living, we have been asking, and thank you for all your calls in hour number one. Welcome to hour number two. We have been asking if you have any ideas that would lower costs for Canadians. Let's get right back to it because it's very busy today on Talkback. 1-833-668-2577. If somebody hangs up, that's your signal that there's a free line. You may want to grab it. Greg, you're up first in hour number two. Greg?
Hi, good
Greg.
morning, or I guess afternoon.
Yeah, it's afternoon
caller?
just about everywhere now. Yep. Hi, Greg. Sorry.
Yeah. First-time caller. Love the show.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah. What's your idea?
My idea is So typically, in the average household, the second or third highest expense is a vehicle. And with the problems that we're facing in terms of tariffs with the automotive industry in Ontario, etc., my thought is, like, my kids are teenagers, and we're getting close to the point where they're going to be getting their first car. And my first car was a 79 Chevy Chevette, and then after that I had two 78 Honda Civics. Now, those cars were so basic and simple. They were cheap to operate. I could repair them myself. Modest repairs, like nothing dramatic. But why not have the auto industry do something along the lines of building something like a Volkswagen Beetle or like the old style Honda Civics that were very basic and simple, and reduce the cost in terms of what a purchase price of a car. Like, strip it down basic. It doesn't have to have power windows. It doesn't have to have all the bells and whistles and everything else like that. And, in different parts of the world, like for example, in Australia, Toyota makes a pickup truck called the Hilux, and it's sold in the Middle East and different parts of the world. And that truck is more considered like a utility work truck. It's very similar to a Tacoma, but it's not as luxury as the North American market desires. But that truck is retailing in those for between $22,000 and $25,000 for a pickup truck that's going to get you 300,000 kilometers. So that's what I was thinking, and I think that would help out the auto industry here in Canada. Why don't we have a Canada-made solution for cheap automobiles and trucks?
Build a basic car, sell a basic car.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
AM, FM radio, no air conditioning, no power windows.
Hey, that's how I spent my first 12 years driving.
Believe me.
I didn't.
Well, you mentioned you had a Honda Civic. I had a Honda Civic. I think it was an 87 Honda Civic. It had a choke. I mean, you had to pull out the choke on a cold winter's day to get it going. My first car was a 1979 Mercury Cougar, 2-door with a burgundy Landau roof. And my gosh, it was all hood, that thing. It was, but it was a lot of fun. Let me tell you.
My older brother had that car. So.
And it was beat when I got it, and I beat it up some more. Okay, Greg, thank you. Build a basic car, he says. Marjorie is up next in Red Deer. Hi, Marjorie. Thanks for calling. You're on the air. Can you save us some money, please?
I see that Canada has more stats than they have in USA, and this causes small businesses to have to pay extra money to employees. Builders build homes that are way too lavish, schools that are also lavish. In Red Deer, we have a school that has AC in it. Now, why do we have to have AC when children don't go to school in July and August? It also has a huge, large area to lounge in. If we're getting our children to be an entitled society, what's going to happen if we have a depression? How are people going to cope? Another thing, the complainers, they all go around with a cell phone in their pocket while they go and buy a latte at Tim Hortons. They order, skip the dishes. They don't have to make a pot of soup. They don't know how to save money, and yet they complain all the time. They expect that they have to go to concerts, hockey games, etc. I feel that our politicians have pensions that are way too large, and all these costs trickle down to the taxpayer. I think
so
maybe
we have
that's all that I've got.
Well, but I think what you're getting at is we have to kind of lower our standards a little bit. Is that what you're saying? Our schools shouldn't be as fancy. Our meals shouldn't be as fancy. Our coffee shouldn't be as fancy. This sort of thing. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And these are the people that their expectations that they have to have these things, and yet they complain about the cost of living, or they don't have enough money at the end of the month. I heard about a girl that said, it doesn't matter what the ticket is going to cost to go to FIFA, I am going to buy it. And yet, next year she'll be on welfare.
Well, I don't know about that, but you've touched on something else. You have people ordering skip the dishes instead of putting on a pot of soup or whatever. This was one of the ideas that I wonder if we've gotten too far away from. I hate to use this term because it's kind of dated, I guess, but it's something that they taught us when we were in school. Home economics. Home economics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
How to cook, how to hem a pair of pants, or how to fix a hole in a pair of pants, and how to repair a small appliance if it breaks. None of us know how to do any of this stuff anymore. Maybe we should get back to some of that. What do you think?
Exactly, like your past caller, that cars not have to be so fancy.
Right. Okay. Very good, Marjorie. I think you and Greg should get together and start fixing the world together. You've got some good ideas. We've got to run. Be right back on Talkback. We're looking for cost-saving ideas for Canadians who are struggling with the high cost of living these days. 1-833-668-2577. It's News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Larry is up next on Talkback today. We're talking about the high cost of living and getting some ideas on how to lower costs for Canadians. What are your ideas, Larry? We're waiting to hear them.
Well, okay. This was a policy we were trying to put together back in about 2018, 2019. I don't remember the exact figures, and they wouldn't apply to today, but it dealt with healthcare. Now, we have such an abuse of healthcare right now, people lining up in emergencies, which really aren't emergencies. We were looking at, we had a cost figured out, an average cost for Canadians on what they spend on just going into an emergency every year. And what we were proposing was give everybody a health care card. Now, let's just say, I'm just going to use some figures. Let's say, I can't remember the numbers. Let's say the average was $7,000. We give everybody a $5,000 debit card per se. That's your health care. Now, if you've got a boo-boo on your finger, you use that card, you take it in. Once you've used your $5,000, if you do, you're out of luck. Now, that doesn't apply to genuine emergencies, heart attacks and asthma attacks and car accidents. That is completely separate. So at the end of the year, these people, first of all, they start off with, let's just say, a $5,000 card. Maybe they go to the emergency 2 or 3 times, but whatever's left on that card, they keep. Tax-free.
Okay.
We roll it over into next year. So what we do is we reduce. You can almost guarantee you would reduce the overcrowding and abuse of our healthcare system. It would put the money back into people's pockets, tax-free. $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, and next year it would be rolled over again.
You roll it over. Okay. Well, that's very interesting. The Fraser Institute comes out with a report. It came out just a few weeks ago. What are we paying for healthcare? What are we paying for healthcare? Okay. Now, it said the average cost for healthcare insurance for one Canadian adult in 1 year is $5,700. $5,700. Okay. So you're saying, think about that health card that you have now. You kind of make that a debit card, if you will. You load it up with $5,000, right?
Let's say 5, yeah.
And then the people are gonna, people will think twice if they, as you say, have a boo-boo or a sprained ankle or something, and they have to go to the emergency room or whatever, because it will be debited off that health card, debit account, if you will, right?
Exactly.
And maybe they don't cost the healthcare system, say, $5,700. Maybe at the end of the year, maybe it's $3,500, and the balance gets rolled over and topped up next year. So that you're envisioning it's something like that.
Yeah, they get the balance.
Not the craziest idea I've heard. Yeah. Okay. You carry the balance forward. Right. Okay.
So,
No, it's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. No. Another idea along those lines that I've heard is if somebody does go to the hospital, say to an emergency room or whatever, you don't necessarily give them a bill. You don't give them a bill, but you give them an itemized list of what it costs. Because right now we have no idea what did it actually cost, that trip to the hospital. What did it actually cost? Right? Maybe it's thousands of dollars.
I've been an employer all my life, and the idea is if there's no repercussions or anything, it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, that's what it costs. Okay, fine.
Okay, all right.
Put it back on the people. Here's your opportunity.
Right.
Are you really going to go and see a doctor because you've got a hangnail? Probably not.
Well, no, but I mean, who's doing that anyway? I mean, right? Who's doing that?
The overcrowding in emergencies right now. I just had a friend that was there the other day, and there were so many people in there, and one had a sprained wrist or something. Somebody, what was it? He said fell off a ladder or something. Came walking in with his friends, but the health care is free. So let's take time off work. It's a good way to get time off work and go sit in the
Well, I
emergency.
suppose, yeah. Okay.
But if it was
I mean,
your
I don't
guy,
know. They would have to carry me into a hospital in an ambulance these days for me to go wait 24 hours in the emergency room. But thank you, Larry. No, it's an interesting idea, Larry, and I'm not discounting it. Wade in Sylvan Lake up next. Thanks for waiting, Wade. Give me an idea, Wade.
By the way, Rob, over time I owned two 1967 Cougars, and they were great cars.
Yeah,
Anyways,
a lot of fun. They were a lot of fun. 302. 302. Yeah.
Both mine had 289s.
Okay.
But,
all right. Anyway, I could get off track here.
Okay. First thing that should happen is they should defund the CBC. And,
defund the CBC. Okay.
And stop all the money laundering that goes on within the federal government. That would help immensely. And then stop sending all this money over to all these other places, which really is nothing more than money laundering. And, a good example of that is
CBC.
Yeah.
Money laundering in the federal government. I don't know how much money laundering is happening in the federal government. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Maybe it's happening. I don't know.
I'll give you an example.
Very quickly.
I've heard that they sealed the documents on the ArriveCan app. Why would they seal those documents?
Okay. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with that angle of the story. I've been following it pretty closely, but I don't know anything about that one. And Curtis says we got to wrap it up here, so I'll have to wrap it up here, Wade. Be right back, though. Lots of time to fit you in here. I think for the first time we have 2 or 3 lines available, as a matter of fact. Been jammed all day on Talkback. Cost savings for Canadians. What can you do to help Canadians who are struggling with the high cost of living? Because it's real, folks. The pain is real. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Right back to the phones on savings for Canadians because of the high cost of living. What would be your idea? Joe in Port Elgin. Joe is up next. Hi, Joe.
Back up out of KW, thank God. Praise the Lord. So one of your earlier callers mentioned building Canada's own car. Well, we tried that once before. When I was working for Magna at the time, Frank wanted to build his own car, and it was called the Torero. So not too many people know that, unless you're a real Magna insider. But I knew that. And it was an awesome, like a 500 horsepower plus Land Rover on steroids. Anyway, it didn't fly because the economy went for a crap at the time. It was just really bad timing. Now, Magna has come up with a different idea. So they're partnering with a Chinese EV company. Can you say cap circumvention? Can I Hell yeah, it's brilliant. Hey.
Okay. I'm gonna let you go. You get your dog sorted out, Joe. You get your dog sorted out. It sounds like there's some kind of disagreement. The caller who was talking about cars was saying, you got to build a basic car. The cars are too fancy now. They don't need all of this equipment. They don't need, air conditioning and flat screens and power this and power that, power seats, power windows, power everything. Build a basic car that people can afford. I thought that was a pretty interesting idea. Who's up next? Bed in Calgary? Bed? Is that it?
How are you? How's it going, Rob?
Good. Very good. Thank you. What's your idea?
Well, I you know what? I honestly, I can't really talk about the whole Canada. I mean, I'm in Calgary right now, and the one thing that we're dealing with right now is, the teachers are going to go on strike pretty soon here if they don't come to an agreement. And with all these things going on in Alberta, it's kind of weird because I just need to know where the government is spending the money, right? Because the Alberta government, 3 months ago, just talked about having a surplus of over $8.9 billion, right? So, why can't we just give a bit of money to the teachers who are, educating our kids, and the kids are our future? And quite honestly,
well, the Smith government says they are giving a bit of money to the teachers. They're giving them a 12% raise over 4 years, 4% a year, I guess, 5% a year.
Right. But, I don't think that's going to solve any big problems right away when you have 40 kids in the classroom, right? And,
well, they say they're building more schools as well. I'm not here to defend the government. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate, So.
Totally. Yeah. And hey, what about the 10% increase to all the private school and charter school, the subsidies? Do you think these parents need the subsidies if their kids are going to private school paying $30,000 a year? Why are we subsidizing these private schools? That's the other thing. I kind of
I'm not sure if they're subsidizing private schools. I mean, they committed a lot of funding. I mean, billions of dollars in funding to build more charter schools, but people who send their children to charter schools in Alberta don't pay tuition. There's no tuition. They pay other costs. They pay transportation costs and supplies and stuff like that. But as I understand it, there's no tuition.
Right.
We can. Okay, we got to go. I'm sorry, we got to go.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Canadians are struggling with the high cost of living. We've been asking today, what ideas do you have that would lower the cost of living for Canadians? We're open to any and all ideas. John is up next in Calgary. Hello, John.
Hi, Rob. Great show as always. Thanks for hosting.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Interesting question. I'm going to throw a grenade in. I don't know that the problem's as bad as you're outlining, and the reason is this. I think there's a high cost of poor choices, and it breaks down by grouping of ages. I think there's the younger population, the 20s and the 30s. They're making poor choices. They're buying expensive coffees and paying $1,000 a month to have a car. Those are poor choices, and we need to educate those folks out of that. I think that there's another group, an older group, that are failing to invest for their own future and somehow think the state should fund them in later years. Maybe that happened in the past. It can't happen in the future. And then we do have an older community, and I would perhaps provide them with some kind of food stamp solution where you could only buy Canadian goods. I think there's two other things. First, I'd like to see us fund new births with, say, $5,000 per birth, so that in the future we've already invested in CPP for the next generation, even if it takes us 50 or 60 years to run through. And then finally, I think if people have a high amount of debt and they're high leveraged, I think they should go on mandatory training, because I don't know that there's a high cost of living. I think you've had callers say nobody knows how to cook, nobody knows how to repair anything, nobody knows how to look after themselves. We've kind of got lazy. So where people are either high leveraged or in poor debt condition, maybe we should increase training. And I don't. So my
what kind of
is,
training? What do you mean training? What kind of training? Financial literacy training or something like that?
Yeah, home economics.
Okay.
You know, to your point,
Home
you
economics.
don't have to buy home economics. How to fix things. So you don't need to buy Skip or whatever the home delivery thing is. We've got lazy. How to fix things. Financial literacy. All of those things. And I think that should be escalating if people find themselves at a certain amount of debt level, because I don't necessarily agree that it's a cost of living, it's a cost of choices. And that's what as we move into a bit more austerity, perhaps that would be my focus.
All right, John, thank you. Thank you. It's out there for public consumption now. Danvir up next. Danvir. Hi, Danvir.
Hey, Rob.
Hey.
Yeah, it is quite interesting. Like, it's kind of a situation, as you say, it's in the mountain and a hard rock, right? So nowhere to go.
Well, let's try and get somewhere.
The main problem was the excessive money supply, right? And now the money is not in the hands of general public anymore. It's all parked with the billionaires already. But the prices are sticking with us, right? So I'm really not sure how you fix it. Now, the Bank of Canada decreased the rate of interest today. So, like, what are they implying? Like, to take more loan? Like, we already have more percentage of loan or the payments for the loan out of our income. So we take on more loan. Like, is that what they are trying to tell us? So I think there needs to be a serious policy deliberation. Like, it's with the government and Bank of Canada at the same table, and they need to come up with a much more like a reliable policy and sustainable policy.
Okay. Well, just on this idea, you mentioned, that, there's a concentration of wealth among billionaires and so many other people are struggling to make ends meet. What do you do about that? There are other countries in the world, they have exorbitant wealth taxes, for example. Let's go after those billionaires. I don't know.
I think the most easy solution would be to ban lobbying. So
ban lobbying. Okay.
Yeah, like that's the easiest way they do that, right? They're always having policies in their favor. They'll have the policy changes at the time when they are going to benefit the most. So that's what's happening. And we do not have that much resources and that much people with intellect working for us. So that by the time where they are investing is out, like it's already done. At that point, they want you to take their burden, and then again, they're always in a win-win situation. So.
Okay, I would just point out, you say ban lobbying. It's not just billionaires and the corporations owned by billionaires that are lobbying, say, politicians on Parliament Hill. We have a lobbyist registry. We can tell you on any given day, pretty much updated daily, who has been lobbied and who has been doing the lobbying. I have it right here in front of me. For example, one of them, Canadian Federation of Independent Business, has been lobbying. Dan Kelly. The University Pension Plan of Ontario has been doing lobbying on Parliament Hill. Sound Music Licensing Company has been doing lobbying. Who else? Canadian Standards Association, Cooperatives and Mutuals Canada. It's not just billionaires who do lobbying on Parliament Hill. Lots of organizations have their own lobbyists on Parliament Hill, and they're meeting with politicians all the time.
Probably that list should also include like what would the outcomes of that lobbying was, and how much monetary benefits of that lobbying went to these Canadian Small Business Federation or to the billionaires. So just a quick example. I don't know if I have time. Like when there was a housing problem on its peak, there was a summit Justin Trudeau organized. So who was in the summit? Like just take the list of the attendees. Like who was having their say, right? So that's
all right. Thank you. Gotcha. Dan Beer, gotta go. Be right back on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's get to Wayne in Lethbridge on today's topics, ideas that would lower costs for Canadians. Wayne, thanks for waiting, Wayne. Very patient today.
Hi, Rob. First-time caller. Just got a
appreciate
simple thing that logistically probably pretty tough, but a pretty simple idea. For primary residence homes, government should have 25-year interest-free mortgages for people of a certain age, maybe 26 and above. For people that are buying homes for profit, like rental units and stuff, they can go through the regular bank mortgage interest rates, and plus an additional maybe prime plus a % tax on that to go towards offset the interest-free loans or mortgages.
Interest-free mortgages for 25 years. Wow. That is, it sounds like a screaming deal. I mean, where do I sign up for that?
Primary residence, you can't buy
primary residence only. I understand what you're saying. Like, I'm going to live in this home for the next 25 years. It's going to be my home for the next 25 years, maybe my entire life. I don't know.
Or you can transfer it. The mortgage would go. You can still, you still need to be approved for it. You still, first-time home buyers can get a grant. Everything, nothing changes, but just the lender would be the government for your primary mortgage, which is a necessity for every human, should be interest-free. And the government could probably do something like that.
Okay, fair enough, sir. It's out there as an idea. Wayne, thank you. Let's go to, it sounds great. Gosh, I wish I had that when I was trying to buy my first home, a 25-year, no-interest mortgage. What a screaming deal that would be. They couldn't build them fast enough, I would suspect. Tara in Calgary. Hi, Tara. Hamanui. Am I saying that right? Hamanui?
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm okay.
Yeah,
if it's close enough, you'll give me a pass. Okay, you're very kind. Thank you. What's your idea?
My idea, Rob, in this country, we have a lot of things broken. I know there's a time constraint. Our healthcare system, like if you go to any family doctor, they see the 50 patients each day, and whatever they charge government $40 to $50, they make $1 million. On the other end, we don't have enough money to pay the teachers. Right, and we have a capitalism for the poor and the socialism for the rich in this country. So this whole system is broken. If somebody is like medically graduated from anywhere, UK, Ireland, human anatomy is same all over the world. That guy cannot practice in this country. That the medical association, there are so many bodies, right? And we have a broken healthcare system, broken housing system. Like a lot of things are broken. Believe me. In this country, a single family doctors file the tax for $1 million a year, and on the other end, teachers get paid $60,000 to $80,000. How on earth there is a fair system in this society?
Well, I don't know. You're saying, if I could just interrupt, sir, let me come to the defense of I won't say poor, but certainly overworked and very busy family doctors in this country, and goodness knows we need more of them. You're saying, okay, they're seeing 50 patients a day, whatever it is, and they're charging, the provincial health program $40 or $50 to see that person for 15 minutes or whatever it is. I don't know what the exact billing is. But if it's in a doctor's office, there are all kinds of expenses to running a doctor's office, right? It's not like that $40 or $50 is going, out of the government's pocket right into the doctor's pocket. The doctor has an office. They have probably rent on the office and utilities to pay on the office and equipment to pay for, probably leased, staff. all kinds of staff and medical supplies, which are very expensive. What is the doctor clearing in the run of a year? I'm not saying we have to pass the hat for doctors, but this idea, well, maybe they bill $1 million. Okay, maybe they do bill $1 million, but what do they bring home at the end of the year? That's what I'd be curious to know.
Rob, I'm accountant, right? So what they bring,
Okay.
I don't want to disclose any personal, but thing is, how on earth an undergraduate family doctor can make $1 million? Okay, I'm not saying they should not making the money, right? But there should be a fair distribution of wealth in this country. How on earth they're undergraduate and teachers are undergraduate too. Both of them go to university. Both of them spend 10 hours, and one person is working on $25, $30 an hour, and other person can make that kind of money. Time is the important for both. Both got the families. And why we cannot have those guys? We have the doctors working in over emergencies, making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, working 12 hours there, right? Why we cannot put these guys on the good wages, $200,000, $300,000, and let them work 8 to 12 hours rather than doing the private practices, hiring claiming this expense, that expense. I know the business, how the business works. But healthcare, these are the basic things: healthcare, education, shelter, right? We should not be doing the profiting in these sectors at least.
Okay, fair enough, sir. Maybe you do know it better than I do if you're doing the books for the doctors. I'll be right back. 1-833-668-2577. Talkback. A few minutes left to fit you in. We can squeeze you in before we have to call it quits here. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What ideas do you have that would lower costs for Canadians? Sarb in Cambridge. Sarb.
Hey, Rob. Always a great show. And
thank you.
I just want to say, when I came to this country 7 years ago, someone told me that Canada was built for honest, hardworking, and dedicated people.
Okay.
But right now, the government have done criminals, scammers, thieves, thugs, who are playing with the system right now because the law, the code system is so lenient. They get arrested today and get out tomorrow. So in North America, we listen to the news. We listen to politicians because it's all the trust. We believe in them. So what they say, we believe it's going to happen. About 5 years ago, our government have pledged that interest rates are going to stay low. You can buy anything you want. You can get homes, cars, or any other asset. So I was also one of them. I bought the house, and it was on variable mortgage. Right now, I know how I am living. I'm just paycheck to paycheck. I'm not the one, only even some of the other guys who are working with me have kind of same situation. So I assume that it's with all of them. The other thing I want to say is, just to add on, when anybody comes to Canada, especially on visitor visa or student or temporary foreign worker, except PR, they do not get the police clear certificate. They do not have the police clearance certificate at all. So government just let them sleep in, and then we can see the results right now, right?
Okay.
This is the big flaw from liberals. I'm not sure about the conservatives because I haven't been in their era. I just have the experience with liberals. We know the liberals are kind. Like, Canada government is politest government in the world. We are the best country to live in. But the system.
But you think this is driving
right
up costs? You think this is driving up costs for Canadians?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
We need more guys. We need more police. We need more competition in the market, like more grocery stores, more local stores with a better price. We need more milk market. Right now, we are just purchasing just a liters of milk bag. What, $7, $8? Like, it's too much, man. We need some competition in the mobile industry. Like, the Rogers or Bell is just leading the whole market.
Okay. Okay.
That
all right.
Be that way.
More competition. Yep, more competition. Yeah, I'm writing this down. Okay, more competition. Good stuff. And you want immigration reined in by the sounds of things, Sarb, which is, gosh, that's like evergreen. It almost comes up every day here. Okay, I'm going to take one more. 60 seconds or less, though, Corey. I mean, not a lot of time, but give me an idea, Corey, if you're still with me.
I got it. I'll make it short and sweet. I think we should have an independent third party to evaluate all the bleeding that's going on in our federal government, i.e., 440 million quarterly to Canada Post. If we can make it profitable, we cut it loose. We make the people that can make it profitable, let them do it. UPS isn't having that problem. FedEx isn't having that problem. Yet, when the government runs it, all of a sudden we run to a $1.6 billion annual deficit just on that one component. So we should just strip it out, let the big boys do it the way they can do it really well, and audit the rest of all the bleeding companies and all the different programs that we have that are not holding their own, if you would. That would go a long way.
Gotcha. Wow, what a whirlwind of a talkback that was. Thank you. Back tomorrow. New topic, more calls, and always the latest breaking news. Next on News Radio.